This program is brought to you by MCN, delivering a better advertising experience.
On Australia's business channel, this is Media Week.
Hello and welcome to Media Week. Ahead, we'll get some insight into where ad spend is going in terms of the different media, who's #1 in the latest online news survey, and a management change at Macquarie Radio. But first, Network 10 has brought legal proceedings against Seven, arguing it induced a breach of contract. It comes after John Stevens pulled out of a 2-year contract signed with 10 to return back to his previous home of Seven. The move comes before he'd begun at 10. He's set to commence employment there on June 9. Well, for more, James Manning, co-host and editor and publisher of Media Week, joins us as always in the studio. James, good to have you company.
Ingrid.
Now, this has really blown up this week. What do you make of it? What's the latest?
Turned into a real scrap, isn't it? I guess it shows you what the high stakes involved. And look, programming television, there's not a lot of, it's a big money earner, $4 billion in ad revenue annually. But there's not many people that have that specialist knowledge to program a TV network. John Stevens would be very flattered to be so much in demand at this stage of his career. We'd really only been working part-time for Seven. But then again, look, it hasn't really gone as well as he'd hoped. He's come out now, he's changed his mind. He doesn't want to go to 10. 10 are saying, look, sorry, too late. We've got a deal. You're starting June 9.
How important is he, do you think, to 10's strategy when they're trying to ramp it up?
Well, I think he's pretty important. Look, their program, Beverly McGarvey's just gone on a maternity leave, so there's really no one there with, with that sort of network experience to put all these shows into their best slots. He was going to come in and give them some of that skill. The fact that he knows, his background is at 9, he knows their history, he knows Seven's sort of secrets, which is the big reason Seven didn't want him to go.
What are the
very key.
If they can get an injunction against him going back to 7, will he still necessarily go to 10?
Yeah, look, whether he'd want to go there and whether that will happen, but I think
not a great way to start.
I think 10's maybe worst case scenario is now if they don't get him, at least they might stop him working for 7 as well.
This is sort of similar to what we saw with James Warburton, although I guess James Warburton had a lot more inside information, whereas Stevens doesn't have anything on 10 yet.
Yeah, but it's 10's third player, significant distance behind the others. They really need to get in some smart people. They've got Peter Meakin, they think is going to, supercharge their news and current affairs a bit. And they really wanted, probably one of their weaker spots is their programming. They've got some good shows that people will watch. We know that from the history of them, but they just can't seem to get an audience flow there that will work for them. That's where they really need a program.
This could drag out a while though, right?
Yeah, I think it'll be around for a little while, and it's hard to imagine what a settlement might be.
Well, we'll be watching, and there is always, moving on now, plenty of interest where and how much is being invested by advertisers in different medias. Now, at the start of a new year, that interest reaches almost fever pitch as new programs and products in the various media battle for a bigger cut of that ad dollar. Well, to help us navigate, though, through where the media buyers are making money and moving money this year, we're joined by Victor Corones, Chief Investment Officer of IPG Mediabrands Australia, and, of course, James Manning as well. Victor, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Let's start with television, because 7 and 9 more than ever seem to have control of eyeballs this year. Could they both end up with more than a 40% share of ad spend?
In 2014, it's unlikely. I think when you look at 10's performance to date, they've had probably the best growth out of all of the 3 networks initially at the start of this year through SMI data. If 7 and 9 over the long term can widen their lead over the 10 network, then probably there is an opportunity further down the track for them to be both securing a 40 share. 9's been really vocal about getting a 40 share this year, and they're going to be quite committed to it, but I think 10 is also going to be fighting hard for every dollar that they can secure this year.
I guess 10's numbers are helped a little bit maybe because they got a bit of money with the Winter Olympics, and they've had some pretty bad figures they're comparing against next year, so it probably helps them look a little better.
It does.
Tell me about when you buy 10, I mean, do you need to get a lot of make goods, or are you pretty much paying for what you get? I mean, and the market sets the rate pretty much too, doesn't it?
It does. When For 10, they have a lot of good programs, but it is about 10 meeting the market expectations in terms of what they're prepared to pay for a program. And to date, you can see that in terms of the way that 10's engaging the market and pricing themselves competitively to try and secure dollars.
It must be hard that it keeps spending on a network that underperforms.
Well, I think if you look at audience metrics only, and you make decisions on that alone, it can lead you down a path of perhaps not choosing 10, but the 10 stable is great programming. Their challenge, I think, relates more to marketing efforts and actually creating greater awareness and hype around each of the show launches and driving eyeballs to watch those shows. But the shows themselves, it's great content and consumers are really engaged with it.
With 7 and 9 obviously like to be this far ahead of 10, but I mean, is there a downside too that some advertisers might feel, look, if we cover off with 7 and 9, we'll look for other opportunities instead of buying a third network, maybe digital, and some of the money might go out of the TV sector?
Yeah, look, the market is already doing that and constantly evaluating. For us, it's about trying to find levers to leverage the best possible price for our advertisers. And already you can see, even through last year, even the last couple of years, the migration of dollars towards subscription TV. Last year it grew by close to 15%, but also the migration of video dollars has also been growing. And we're expecting by 2018 that the video dollars alone would probably be as big as the subscription TV sector it is now. And the incremental dollars, if you were to put that back into TV, that would actually provide at least 5 growth points each year in terms of revenue. But it's being diverted away from TV at the moment because we're looking for those opportunities.
Well, I was going to say, does a network rating well below the other actually lead to money leaving the sector?
It certainly creates questions and gets advertisers to start seeking other opportunities, particularly if the audiences were historically on the network that's now currently underperforming. So they are constantly re-evaluating and looking to find the most cost-effective way to reach those audiences. Sometimes it may be on the competing network, but other times it may be elsewhere in video and things like that.
Victor, talk to us about radio. It's never had such a high profile, I don't think, since I've been covering the sector, really. There's been lots of anticipation about the first survey figures. KISS did fantastic business. 2GB still their number one, though, arguing perhaps correctly it's been a little bit overlooked. What do you make of those two stations' performances?
It's definitely exciting to see some new news in the radio sector, and seeing such a dramatic shift in audiences is getting everyone to talk about the sector, and that in itself is a good thing for the sector, because people will re-evaluate the value there. KISS has definitely had some significant audience growth, and from their current survey to where they were as Mix 106.5, the audiences have grown 64%. So that has to lead to an opportunity for them to monetise that. And given that radio's traded short term, it's a lot easier for them to do that. Whereas in TV, it's a little bit harder, that even if you are getting rating success, to convert that. 2GB, on the other hand, it's been a dominant player in the market. It's been number one. But on the latest survey, its audiences, from memory, went slightly back. But it has a different challenge, and that's to do with the age or the profile of that station.
Given KISS is a new offering, do you think it will just continue to get more and more ad spend?
For sure. And at the moment, they're...
Should advertisers be piling in now?
You know what?
Or do you sit
trying
back
to get the cheaper price?
You know, do you wait a bit?
No.
Do you think there's strong enough signs that, look...
There were definitely, even before the survey was being released, I think there were some good indicators that there was going to be a dramatic shift. I don't think people expected it to be as dramatic, and the view would be that would probably continue now for the next few surveys. And as a consequence, everyone would be re-evaluating their media plans and deciding how many dollars to be allocating to each of the radio networks based on that performance.
2GB's got some interesting research, just before we leave that, and does it mean anything to you guys when they say, look, people 55 to 60 act and spend like they're 45 to 50, and they have a lot of money? I mean, have they got a point there?
Absolutely. Yeah, look, the research that they've done does resonate. There is definitely truth in it. Their challenge is we have an advertising industry that's very geared to focusing on people 18 to 54. Getting them to focus on baby boomers who are cashed up, they are the ones that have the money to spend, does require a bit of a re-education on the client side, and also encouraging agencies to re-evaluate and re-explore that. But it does start initially with the client and getting them to focus traditionally, move away from their traditional mindset of a younger audience that they can get brand switching to occur, and actually focus on a baby boomer, where the research that 2GB's been put forward does seem to indicate that they are definitely open to switching, which is probably contrary to historical beliefs.
Of course, that's good for any. We talk about the Sydney stations, but AW and 5AA, and the same thing appeals to those dominant stations, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Victor, I want to also talk about the print space. Do you think media buyers have bailed out too quickly from magazines and newspapers?
I think there definitely has been a bit of a sheep herding mentality around it. It does come back to losing sight around what is the role of print versus what is the role of digital. And what we have seen is the dollars that have disappeared out of the print sector really have gone straight to digital. But the roles that can be quite different, and they're not really interchangeable. And I think it is about understanding that there are still clear roles that print can play within a client's media plan, and obviously digital as well. So it's just really coming back to the basics and understanding what can print add to a media plan versus what does digital do. And
we hear about in tying in with that, the people talking about the re-evaluation of digital media. I mean, is that a sort of real movement?
There is definitely more questions being asked, and I guess a reconsideration over perhaps where clients have made some significant shifts towards digital. And like anything, it's a bit of a pendulum sort of dynamic that if you swing too hard one way, then you reassess and maybe you pull back. Print and traditional vehicles still have scale and lots of eyeballs that are watching that medium, and digital still has some challenges in terms of the scalability of what it can offer in the way that we can currently do that through our messaging in traditional media.
Have you seen print publishers changing their messages at all? I mean, we've seen, for a while, Fairfax in particular, was seen very keen on pushing their customers and their advertisers maybe into digital. Has there been a pullback from that, and they're thinking, all right, we do have two very good products here, we'll sort of try and market both?
Well, it probably, at the heart of all of this, is understanding that you have a brand, and the platform on which you consume that, be it through the physical copy or digital, shouldn't be something that we obsess about. And ultimately, it's about knowing and understanding how the audience is engaged with that brand through the physical copy and through print. And I think print publishers have struggled to really have an understanding of how the two can work together, and are trying to find ways to monetise it, but it's still a model they haven't cracked.
All right, Victor, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks so much. Victor Corones there, Chief Investment Officer of IPG Mediabrands Australia. We do need to take a quick break here on Media Week. Coming up, we'll talk the latest audience numbers for online news sites. Who's come out on top? We'll tell you next.